Alright, welcome to Jim Bob's Garden. This is going to be my series on pests. I want to talk about some of the different pests that you got to deal with. I've already done a video on fire ants and the ways I think I can go about getting rid of them. On this video, we want to talk about moles. Now, are moles bad? Are moles good? That's a really good question. They dig up the ground. They make the ground look ugly. They can tear up your trees. I had planted a lemon tree that I grew from a cutting, and unfortunately the moles got to it, chewed it up, and essentially I don't know whether or not they chewed the roots up or just left air holes underneath the ground where the tree was, and so there was nothing there for the roots to get onto, but essentially they killed the tree. So that does complicate things. The other side of that is moles will eat grubs and such in the dirt. That's what they're after, is the grubs in the dirt. Matter of fact, I had a mole problem in my other house, and this is before I started trying to be more permaculture-y or more organic, and I used a lot of bug killer, and the moles went away because there was no food source for them. So we're going to talk about moles, and then you can decide whether or not you want them in your yard, whether or not you want to leave them. Okay, so that's a mole. I found this one dead near my trash cans for some reason. I'm not sure what killed it or why it came up out of the ground. I have not been poisoning them, but that one was found dead, like I said, near my trash cans. Whoa. Oh, there's a really good close-up view of what they look like. These little critters, matter of fact, just to give you the scope of how big they are, let me put my shovel next to it. So as you can see, they're pretty small, little bitty things, but they do a lot of damage. If you look around here, hopefully you can tell kind of what they've done to my yard here. Lots of mounds. They just kind of dug it all up. This was all smooth, nice grass prior to this, and this is some of the damage that moles do. Now, growing a yard is really not my major concern, though my homeowners association may think differently. They do the same thing when they get in and amongst your garden. So the question is what to do about them. So, despite all the damage that's been done to the grass, which I'm not that concerned about. I'll come out here with the mower when it gets to be mowing season and kind of run it over multiple times to try and flatten it out somewhat. The big question is whether or not you want to do anything about moles at all. Should we just let them go? There are ways to go about killing them. They make a trap where essentially where the ground is popped up, you just step on that ground, flatten it out, and then when the mole comes under that trap, it'll push up on a catch that causes some stakes to go down into the ground and kill the mole. Probably a fairly humane way of killing them. There's also poisons available, but again, I've told you before, I'm trying really hard not to use any kind of poison, any kind of insecticide, anything that's going to disturb the natural balance. And speaking of natural balance, moles are part of the nature, part of what's going on in the world, if we don't mess with it. So there comes my question: should I or shouldn't I mess with it? To my knowledge, there's really no natural predators for moles other than snakes, and possibly disease. So if I leave the moles go, will I have an increase in snakes in the yard? Because this is a snake-prone area. I have at one point killed a copperhead that was just sitting up in my garage looking at me when I came home one day. And obviously I don't want poisonous snakes. Other snakes I don't really mind at all. In fact, they're good to have in your habitat. So will it bring more snakes? That's a good question. I don't know. Another way that is supposed to work is to take gummy worms and put them in your soil. Basically, you dig a hole into the mole run with your finger, stick a gummy worm in, and then just cover it over. Kind of the same thing you do with the poisons. I have tried that. I don't know whether or not it's worked. on some of them, but it definitely hasn't killed them all off because I've got molehills everywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let them run. Yeah, I'm going to lose some crops. I'm going to maybe lose some trees, but they don't really mess with the established trees. It's just usually the young trees. One of the things you can do is to take a what's called hardware cloth. And you take this hardware cloth and you basically encirculate the tree with a depth of about 2 feet. I think it normally comes in about 2 to 3 feet tall. So you dig a hole around and you put basically a barrier around your tree, which I may try and do that depending on how many problems basically the moles are causing me. They are in my garden. As I've gone to kind of mix in the soil, I've found, or plant things, I've found molehills or mole holes under the ground in the garden. A little harder to detect there unless you've got really smooth ground, because you don't really notice it getting pushed up as much. And the ground is looser, so they just kind of pack it as they go along. But again, they do eat grubs, and the grubs are stuff that eats plants. So I think what I'm going to do is let it go for now, and just kind of see if things balance out. The idea here is that nature will balance out, and for every prey, there'll be a predator that gets introduced into the ecosystem that takes care of that, or at least minimizes that type of animal or insect, as the case may be. Trying to let that balance reestablish itself. Right now I have a mole issue. I'm thinking maybe in the near future I'll have a snake issue. We're just going to have to kind of see how that goes, and I'll let you know. Now, as far as getting rid of a dead body like that, makes excellent compost. Just dig it down to where the predators aren't going to dig it up. Go down about a foot, bury it with a foot of dirt, and it'll eventually rot into the soil and become nutrients for the soil. If you got other ideas on how to take care of moles or keep them out of your yard, let me know. Obviously, ecologically friendly ideas. But that's what I'm going to do. I've got tired of fighting them, so I'm going to let them run, and we'll see how it goes and whether or not it really becomes a huge problem. All right, once again, thanks for stopping by, and subscribe, like, let me know what you think, and if you got ideas, send them to me. All right, thanks once again.